Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Every Possible Angle. We're really excited to have Woodlhey Ambroise joining us today. She is a Senior Director of Organ Operations and Surgical Recovery at the LifeGift OPO in Houston, Texas. Woodley, welcome to the show, and we're really happy to have you today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Woodley, your background is really interesting, and one thing I love to do with our guests is always talk about what led them into the field of transplantation and eventually into the role and organization that you're at. So, can you briefly walk the audience through kind of your background, what motivated you, your journey into transplantation, and eventually at LifeGift?
Like you said, my transition into this industry was quite interesting. So I did attend medical school in Mexico. So I'm a foreign medical graduate. And then, of course, as some people may or may not know, it's a little harder for people who are foreign medical graduates to obtain residency spots here in the United States because the requirements are a little different for us. So it was taking quite some time. And at the time, my boyfriend, who's now my husband, we're like, okay, fine, because he attended the same school. Okay, we need to go ahead and do something. So we decided, okay, we did our rotations here in Texas with several hospitals here in the medical center in Houston. So we decided to do respiratory. Did respiratory. I was getting bored because I get bored very easily. So we're like, okay, I'm like, respiratory doesn't work for me. I didn't want to go back to try and do my residency because I was a real adult at that time. So I didn't want to do that. So I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to PA school. There's a transition that goes from respiratory into PA. So my goal was go ahead and do that. I'm like, but because I obtained my undergrad, even though I did have a medical degree, I obtained my undergrad out of Texas. So the requirements were a little different. So I said there was some courses that I didn't take as an undergrad that I had to go back for entrance into a Texas school. And then when I went to get those courses, there was someone who was working at LifeGift who was working here as a clinical coordinator. And she explained to me what she did. I'm like, oh, that's perfect for me. I could go ahead. I mean, when you're at the bedside, you're the one that's writing the orders. So it's like you're working in the physician capacity anyway. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect for me. And 13 years later, here I am.
Are you originally from Texas?
I am not. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and then my parents of Caribbean descendants. My parents are both Haitian.
Okay, very cool. And you mentioned that you spoke to a clinical coordinator who shared with you kind of what the role was. What are the things that they shared with you? I think you mentioned a little bit about kind of some level of clinical decision making or guidance. So what are the things that really drew you into that role?
So the clinical guidance, the clinical management of the role, that was very important to me because I would be able to still utilize the skills that I went to school for. Also, another thing that drove to me is the mission behind organ donation and transplantation. And this is not something that's taught in school. So as she was explaining to me what she did, you could see the gleam and the passion in her eyes. And I'm like, okay, that's what I need. I need a job that's going to give me that amount of passion and give me that gleam. When you're talking about something that you love, your eyes are dancing. I needed something like that. So how she explained it, and because of my clinical background, and I wanted to do something new, so I said, okay, fine, I think this is where I need to go. And hence to say, I did not go to PA school. I got to master's instead, but I didn't go to PA school. And like I said, here I am still 13 years later.
Yeah, I was reading you recently featured by the Alliance, and I was reading a little bit about your background, and it looks like your mom had a really influential role as you kind of grew up. Tell us a little bit more about like her kind of influence on you then, and also continue to have today.
Okay. So my mom is a nurse. So medical personnel is prevalent in my family. And my mom is also a woman of faith. And she also instilled that in me and my siblings as well. So my mother was my biggest advocate. So she always pushed for us to do more. She also stated that, and I value her a lot because she came here from another country. When she was in high school, she was able to graduate high school and college here, able to attend nursing school. And she made sure that we had the best. We didn't long for anything or didn't need anything because my mom took care of us. And along with my dad, mom was the one that she kind of was the go-getter, pusher to make sure everything was okay. I could remember that my mom would go ahead and work nights and then she'll come home on a Sunday morning and be like, okay, fine, come on, let's go, let's get ready for church. So she instilled that hardworking, that passionate, that go-getting, mission-driven, helping others. My mom instilled that in me.
That's very inspiring. Um, that's amazing. And now in your role, I met, as I kind of introduced you as the senior director of organ operations and surgical recovery. For the folks that might be listening in that may not know a lot about what an organ procurement organization is, can you tell us a little bit at a high level what the mission of an OPO is, and specifically then, your role and what that covers?
Sure. So, in layman's term, what the OPO is the organization. There's, I think, now 56 of us in the United States. So they serve as the bridge between the recipient and the transplant centers and the donor family. So, in a gist, the OPO is there to be there for the family on the worst day of their life, for them to be able to give the gift of life to someone who's waiting for another chance at life. So, they're there to make sure we exemplify dual advocacy. We're there not only for the donor family, but we're also there for the recipient. We ensure that everything that the gift that the recipients are given to us, that we maximize all opportunities to ensure that donation is able to happen, and we ensuring that the safety and the recovery of the organs to ensure the recipients are able to obtain their gifts. So to be able to see that someone waited 6 years for a kidney, that's mind blowing. And to know that you're able to go and have a family, when the donor family is able to meet the recipient, and the donor family is able to hear their loved ones' lungs take a breath, or able to hear their loved ones' heart is beating inside someone else. Or we had one of the most compelling family reunions that I was a part of. There was a hand transplant that was involved, and that mom was able to see her son's hand on somebody else. And that recipient said that he's now able to play golf, he's able to write. There was a lot of things that he wasn't able to do before. And because of this selfless gift that these donor families are given to us, he's able to have another chance at life.
Wow, that's incredible. I think the impact is so broad, and it looks like the OPO and your colleagues also have a broad in terms of coverage and mission. Um, in terms of kind of everything you cover as an OPO, can you share a little bit more about like both the geography that LifeGift covers, but also when you think about the continuum of organ donation, right? Somebody signs up to be an organ donor, and then their organs are recovered and ultimately transplanted. So both from a geographic perspective, but also from a continuum, can you share a little bit about like everything that LifeGift does along that process?
Okay. So LifeGift serves the Southeast, the North, and West Texas areas. So if you take a look at the service area that LifeGift covers is really vast, and it's a lot. We service, for example, we service Fort Worth, the Fort Worth area, but we do not service Dallas. Our other OPO colleagues in Dallas services that area in Dallas. We do cover Fort Worth. So like I said, we serve as the bridge between the donor family and the recipients. We're there for the donor family. We're also there for the recipients and for the transplant centers. And we're also there for the community. As an OPO, it is our responsibility to educate the community about organ donation and to dispel all the myths that we have out there, and to let people know that donation is an option. You don't have to be on dialysis for the rest of your life. You can go ahead and see if you granted donation may not be the option for everybody, but it's an option for a lot of people who don't know that option is out there. So being able to educate the community on the options that's available to them, and being able to educate the community on the importance of organ donation and transplantation, that's another thing that we also do. And that's also very near and dear to our hearts as well.
So Woodley, you talked about, the broad mission, and what's really been interesting to me, I've only been in the transplant field for 4 years. And before being in this field with Paragonix, my awareness was not as deep as it is today. And my frank awareness was, hey, when I get my license renewed, somebody's asking me to be an organ donor. From your perspective, what are the opportunities to maybe build on that so people are really aware when they're making that decision to be an organ donor or not to be an organ donor?
I think is the lack of knowledge. That's why people do not want to be an organ donor. Because if you go ahead and you ask someone, over 60% of Americans believe in organ donation. But if you look at the number of people that are registered, it's a lot less. So it's the lack of education. There's things that are on television. There's things that are on social media that are not entirely true.
Hmm.
That's why as OPOs, it's our responsibility to educate the community on the truth, to educate the community that just because you go ahead and you have an accident on the side of the road and you're a registered organ donor, that the doctor is not going to go ahead and take care of you. They're not going to go ahead and help you. That's incorrect. As physicians, you take the oath to do no harm. So with that being said, it means that their first focus is to go ahead and make sure that you're okay and to save your life. The hospital have no idea who's registered and who's not registered. They have no access to those lists. So I think it's our responsibility as the people who are in this industry to educate, to let people know, to provide awareness and knowledge, because knowledge is power, as we all know, to ensure that we're providing this information to them. So when they do have these questions, it's not on the worst day of their lives when someone is coming to ask them, hey, by the way, what do you think about organ donation? Because at that point, they're also dealing with grief. So sometimes the families are not 100% because their loved one is dying or has died. So our job is to ensure that to reach to as many people as possible to ensure they have the information ahead of time. Because a lot of people in some cultures, in some backgrounds, talking about death is like taboo. So there's certain conversations people do not have up front. But if we're having any community activities or there's community engagements or events that's going around throughout the community, our job is to go there, to go ahead and educate and help to go ahead and spread the awareness and dispel the myths in regard to organ donation,
Hmm.
organ and tissue donation.
Yep. Another thing I learned in the last few years is that in addition to being an organ donor, one can actually go and select kind of more specifically what types of organs they're okay donating or not. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because that was something I did not know until recently.
So once you register to be an organ donor, you can always go to the Donate Life registry in your particular state. And then at that point, you'll be able to select which organ and tissues that you'd like to donate.
Okay. Okay. That's really, I think, good for, just as you said, broader education for people who may not know and want to learn more and know that there's more options. Another question I have, and this is just a different perspective. I've also learned overseas there's countries that they have an opt out kind of approach to organ donation. Kind of what we just talked through is you have to consciously opt in to become a donor. What are your thoughts on that model, just at a high level?
I think with education, people will be more inclined to go ahead and want to do it. But I mean, because of everything that's going on right now with the industry, I think it's a little bit, um, it's difficult
Yep.
because there's a trust factor. So we need to make sure that, like I said earlier, to provide the trust to the community to ensure that, um, the message that we're giving is the right information, it's the correct information. It's our responsibility again to educate. Um, in the United States, I think that would be a hurdle that we would have to cross
Hmm.
because of all the nuances that comes along with it. But do I think it's a great thing? It is, because it's yes up until you say no.
Yep.
So that would help a
Yeah,
lot.
I think trust, as you've talked about a few times already, is really the foundation of this field. And I think as you really eloquently put, I think there's more we can continue to do to continue to build on that trust. It, let's I want to really understand a little bit more about Life Gift and your role, your team's role. Maybe help maybe the audience understand how teams are structured in an OPO, for general awareness. Not everybody does everything. So how is perhaps the teams at LifeGift structured?
Okay. So within my role, I oversee two departments. I oversee the allocation and the recovery and preservation departments. And the allocation team also takes the incoming vented referrals. So every OPO, their team structure is a little different. And if you guys have visited OPOs, every name, I can have the same role at my OPO, and the next person, the other OPO, their name, their title is completely different, but we do the same job.
Mm.
So we have it where we have someone that does education to the hospital.
Hmm.
That's hospital development. We have someone that does that's approaching the family. That's either family engagement, family support, family advocates. Different OPOs have different names. We have people that are responsible for the donor management and the care of the patient that are bedside clinical coordinators that are in the hospital. We have coordinators that do the allocation of the organs. They're the one that's ensuring that they're matching the right recipient with the donor gifts that's been bestowed to us. We have coordinators that also do recovery. So they're in charge of the recovery, preservation, placing organs on pumps, and managing the OR. And they take care of that to the end of the case. We have, of course, we have quality departments. We have logistics here at LifeGift that takes care of all logistics. We have, of course, accounting, finance, and all those other departments as well. The administration part of it that keeps us afloat. But it takes, like, you know how they say it takes a village?
Yeah.
It takes a village to make donation happen.
Yeah.
So we all are interdependent on each other to go ahead and move donation forward.
Wow, that's incredible. I think the amount of coordination between team members, it's a 24-hour, 7 days a week
It
activity
is.
as well. So it's really incredible. And I think every person I meet in this field, whether it's at transplant centers or OPOs, the mission driven kind of nature of their work and them as individuals is really inspiring to me. Um, One thing that I've learned is that LifeGift also has a role with living donation, and that's unique perhaps to LifeGift. Can you share a little bit more about kind of the uniqueness of that and how that came to be?
So LifeGift, we work in collaboration with the transplant center in regards to living donations. So transplant center is the one that's driving that really. So LifeGift, we come in and we help with the packaging of the organs, but the transplant center is the one that's driving that initiative in regards to living donation.
Okay, understood. Another thing I think that LifeGift is really focused on is training and simulation. And I understand there's a Lift simulation center at LifeGift. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and what the goal of that is?
Okay, the goal is so LifeGift, we are specialized in that, and we do have the LIFT. So it stands for LifeGift Future in Transplantation. So basically what it does, we have a simulation. So we basically simulate the donation process at our facility. It helps with training and development and process improvement. So we go ahead and we simulate a family conversation. We simulate the donor management aspect. We simulate the allocation, the recovery, just to be able to help our coordinators with training and development. So we have a ICU downstairs. I'm saying downstairs like you guys know where it is. We have the lift department that's downstairs. They have an OR. We have an OR that has that emulate the OR that's in the hospital. We have an ICU that emulates the ICU that's in the hospital. We have ventilators, we have machines, we have monitors. We could make it where the donor's able, the blood pressure goes up, the blood pressure goes down. So it's pretty cool to see. We go ahead and do our safety checks for the coordinators to making sure they understand. We do PALS, we do uh, CPR, ACLS renewal. So all the things that we need to ensure that our staff is properly equipped and trained and empowered to go ahead and do the job out in the field.
Mhm. Wow, that's really fascinating, and so it really prepares a team for when there's an actual case. Because my understanding is that these donations can happen, across the state and
Yes.
in different environments, and I think that's another piece that um, was a learning for me. So maybe you mentioned you simulate a lot of these conditions in house to get your staff ready. Um, but then they also have to travel out in the middle of the night to one of many hospitals in your area. Um, I know some OPOs have donor recovery units. Is that something that you guys are also planning on having? And maybe you already have that in partnership with the hospital. I understand.
Yeah, we do have that. We have it in partnership with the hospitals.
Okay. And what does that allow for? Kind of what are the benefits of having a dedicated donor care unit? versus going to hospitals and using their ORs?
It provides a, a standard of care. Basically, the hospital, they are the donor hospital, the donor facilities where the donation is, they are able to do it, but it provides a standard of care where we could do all the donor management, all the testing, all the diagnostics, and being able to go to the OR. We make it where the family's able to come visit if they need to, but we make it where it's a uniform area where we have it's standard of care
Hmm.
outlined,
Hmm.
to make it where it's feasible for both the donor family and the recipients and for travel purposes and the ORs and stuff like that. I mean, it helps with organs transplanted per donor. So it's you're making sure you're standardizing your process, making sure you're able to provide the necessities they need to go ahead and make donation happen.
Hmm.
That's the
Hmm.
best way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting how different organizations across the country have optimized kind of different workflows and processes that work for you. And that to that end, like I said, I've been in this space for a lot less time than you have, but even in the short amount of time, I've seen a lot of things change. So as you kind of reflect in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, what are some of the biggest changes that you've been really surprised by, welcomed, and then kind of what are the other things in the future that you're really looking forward to?
So I could name a few. Where machine perfusion has gone and where we were and where we are right now, that has really been a game changer for the industry. Another thing, and technology and perfusion and the technology, for example, being able to place a heart on a pump, and where we are with DCDs. When I first started in the industry, when we did DCDs, we would recover liver, kidneys, and that would be it. That was all we could recover. And now, for example, we had a case yesterday in our DSA, and it was a full donor. We're able to recover heart, lungs, liver, kidneys. So that's a new normal, and that's great because then we're able to help more people. So how the trajectory of our industry is going to continue to go up, and it will also help with the positive change with technology being included and having machine perfusion is going to go ahead to allow us to be able to transplant more recipients, going to allow us to do more and allow us the time that we need. Because a lot of times there's the recipients and the doctors, they need time. So if we're able, for example, we utilize the liver guard that I know you guys utilize. So we're able to go ahead and recover the liver, place it on the liver guard, basically giving the transplant center some time. And even if they need to go ahead and put that on a device, on a liver device, I'm sorry, they have that time to go ahead and do that and then bring their recipient in, do any tests they need to go ahead and do on their recipients, and then proceed with the transplant. So I think the devices that are now that we have within the industry and the ability to have a full donor on a DCD, I think that has been a real game changer in where we are right now in the industry. And because DCDs are over 40%, some OPOs are looking at 50% of their cases are DCDs, and
Right.
that was not the case 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. The DCD, donation after circulatory death, for the folks listening in, it has in fact picked up, and I think it's really interesting the role of technology, and how that's really helped provide more options for these transplant recipients. You mentioned the element of time and how with more time you have more options, whether it's for the OPO, for the transplant center. Can you help us understand a little bit more specifically in that maybe use case of using the liver guard for livers? What are the types of options it opens up for you? You mentioned a few, as well as your ability to work with transplant centers. Maybe it's one or more transplant centers.
I'll go ahead and use the Barrett guard that you guys have also. So
Okay.
we're able to go ahead and it's to give context. So now with the devices that we have within the industry available to us, we're able to go ahead. Let's say we have a case where we have to go rapidly, like we have to go within 4 hours, and we don't have time to go ahead and go through the allocation process as we used to, as normal, to have us time to work up the patient, work up the donor and have the recipient have time to go ahead and bring their recipients in and do all these things for them. So we're able to recover the organs, place them on the devices, and then continue with the allocation thereafter. So that's a game changer for us as well for the OPOs. It's providing us the time that we need, even though we has that we're doing allocation afterwards, but it's still allowing the transplant center that time they need for their recipients to bring them into the hospital to do all the diagnostics, ensure that their recipient are suitable for transplant before they move forward with the transplant.
I think you have a unique vantage point as being part of the OPO. What's really interesting to me is, kidneys, the way they've been preserved, and the timeline of allocation is different than especially the thoracic organs, where oftentimes the center has accepted the organ before the organ is recovered. Do you think over time, to what extent are we going to move to that model where, you're recovering the organ because, as an OPO, you've made the determination that there's a chance of it being allocated, so you go ahead and recover it, put it into a preservation system, and then find perhaps the recipient that it makes the most sense. We kind of do this to some extent, it sounds like, for
We
kidney,
do.
and then for liver, it looks
We,
like you're doing that.
so we could do it right now. We can do it for livers. We could do it for kidneys. Of course, that has always been the norm for kidneys, and we could do it for lungs also.
Hmm. Yep.
So
And kind of the historical context of kidney, I think, is really fascinating. And our teams are structured so that we can learn from what's happening in different organ groups. Kidneys in the kidney transplantation has been using machine perfusion for a long time, and I think the use of machine perfusion has allowed for a lot of different benefits. Can you share a little bit more about kind of LifeGift's use of kidney perfusion and how that allows you to, by time, potentially send kidneys to transplant centers that you may not have been able to in the past?
So with kidney perfusion, like you say, it does buy us time. It gives us the opportunity, let's say like for cases that we have to go expeditiously, we're able to recover the kidneys, place the kidneys on the pump and continue with allocation. We even have it now with technology. We're able to um, place the kidneys on commercial flights and being able to do it that way. We're able now with technology being able to monitor the kidneys remotely, which has been a game changer for us. The ability as the kidney is in transit for us to be able to monitor it and for the transplant center to be able to monitor it, that provides the transplant center put their mind at ease because they're able to see what the kidney is doing. And if we need to troubleshoot, we'll be able to troubleshoot because we usually have it. We have I don't want to say a golden rule, but a golden rule here at LifeGift. We don't send kidneys unaccompanied because we
Mm.
want to make sure that it's we recover the kidneys, then we give it to the transplant center that's going to be putting in this precious gift into their recipient. So we're able to monitor in real time. We're able to see how the kidney is performing and being able to allocate, let's say, for example, like I said, to allocate when we have to go rapidly and to be able to provide time for us to get our diagnostics back, to get back serologies and HLA and ABO, and to be able to start doing the match run and then be able to send these offers out. So that has helped us tremendously.
Yeah, what I think has really been amazing working with LifeGift is that your team has really been early adopters of new technology. Your team participated in the first KidneyVault cases, and you mentioned the ability to monitor remotely has been a game changer. And I think you and I have had discussions on what that actually means and why is being able to monitor where the kidney is such a game changer, especially when you think about our ability to track our Amazon packages. So maybe for the audience here who may not have that full context, talk to us a little bit about why it's been a game changer, and especially in the context of, not being able to do that otherwise.
So we've had issues in the past where, for example, something happens to the kidney in transit, and then the transplant center is trying to make a decision whether or not they should accept this kidney because the kidney pump stopped functioning for whatever reason. And we're not able to provide them with that information in real time because they would ask us, okay, so when did the kidney pump stop operating, or when did we start the issue? We could give them the time, but we can't tell them sometimes how long. Or we've had the situation where we drop the kidneys off at the transplant center and then they're not doing the surgery till late, which we had to change that as well. And the kidney stopped working, but we have no way to know until the kidney's back at our office and we have to plug it into the database, to the home base, basically, to be able to have that information. But with KidneyVault, that's a game changer for us because we're able to monitor it everybody, all stakeholders are able to see the link. And they're able to see what the kidney's doing, and then we do have trackers on all our devices as well. I know you guys do as well. And you're able to see where the kidney is. So like you said, we're able to go ahead and track our Amazon package. We're able to go ahead and see, like, if you order pizza,
Right.
it's ordered, it's being baked, it's boxed, it's out for delivery. So with the precious gift of life, we
Yeah.
should be able to do the same thing too.
Yeah.
So technology you are correct. LifeGift, we are early adopters of technology because we believe that the gift of life that these donor family has given to us and these recipients are waiting for, it's our obligation to make sure we do our due diligence to do everything possible to ensure that we maximize both the gift and utilization of that gift.
Yeah. I can see you lighting up as we talk about it, and I love that. And it's really inspiring to hear. And another thing you mentioned, which just makes sense, for you, but perhaps for listeners who may not have the full context, the importance of being able to monitor for all stakeholders, right, is really key. And I understand, and maybe you can elaborate that not everybody is in the same location. That your staff member could be all, in different locations. Can you share a little bit, give us some context of like your staff on a case, how many are involved, and where all they could be located?
So let me give the kidney, for example. We can have a case that happened in West Texas, for example, in Lubbock. So if I'm going to give context, I'm in Houston at the corporate office. So driving from West Texas to Houston is going to take a minimum of 8 hours at minimum. Right. So we can have it where we have the kidney going to Oklahoma if it's coming from West Texas, or it's going to New Mexico. And we have to be able to track that kidney where it's going. So we have it where we have the DRSs that are on the case, that's our recovery staff. So I'm going to speak in OPO jargon. The recovery staff that's on the case, that's in the OR, they're the one that's in charge of managing the OR, and one of the team that I oversee as well. So their responsibility is to make sure they place those organs on these devices, make sure that it's okay. We have our allocation staff who's in charge. That's the second department that I have, that's in charge of ensuring that all the information is there, providing to the transplant center to ensure the transplant center are able to make a sound decision. LifeGift has implemented and adopted a number of things to ensure that we're maximizing all opportunities, to ensure that the transplant center has all the information in a timely manner to be able to make a sound decision. So if you have a recovery staff that's traveling with the kidney, granted, I could call the recovery staff and let them know, hey, where are you? How far away are you? If they're in flight, send them a text message. But in flight, we weren't able to see what the kidney was doing. Now we can.
Mm-hmm.
We're connected to Wi-Fi. I'm able to see what the kidney's doing without having to call the coordinator.
Yeah.
So that has really changed a lot for us too.
And then the other end of this journey for the transplant center and the accepting surgeon specifically, can you share a little bit about that dynamic that, when an offer goes out, the preference of the accepting surgeon on the type of preservation modality that kidney is on or not on?
So for the most part, the transplant centers would prefer the kidneys to be on a pump because it's buying them time, like we said earlier, to be able to do the transplant because donation happens all hours of the day and night. I feel like mostly it happens at between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So to be able to provide them with that additional information, and they're able to view it. So we also have it when we do our biopsy slides, we provide a link. So all the information is given to the transplant center so they can make that decision. So the transplant center, they will tell us. We have received calls when they said, can you go ahead and put the kidneys on the vault for us? Because that's what they prefer. And we'll go ahead and we'll do that. To go ahead and ensure that they have the information that they need. They have the tools that they need to make the right decision for their recipient.
Yeah, and I think just tying it to another comment you made a few minutes earlier is it's not just about perfusing the kidney, but the surgeons, from what you just shared, want to know that it was perfused continuously, that there was no
Correct.
gap in time.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit more
and
about.
they could see that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that is another piece that I've learned, that it's not just perfusion, but it's that it's maximizing the benefits of perfusion. And we try to design the system so that your staff is able to do that. So tell us a little bit more about that dynamic now that you know that it's being perfused all the time, and specifically, that you don't need somebody next to it to be, to optimize the parameters.
Right. We've done that because we have it because, like I told you, our DSA is very
Right.
vast. So we can go ahead and if we put the kidneys on the vault, we could leave the kidney in Lubbock with the transplant center who's accepted that kidney, and then we're still able to monitor it here in Houston. The transplant center don't have to call us. Can I have 2-hour pump numbers? Can I have 4-hour pump numbers? Because they can go ahead and go to a link and they're able to view that themselves. So that has been the game changer for not only the OPO, but also for the transplant centers because they're able to see that information themselves and they don't have to pick up the phone and call. The coordinators don't have to be like, okay, let me go ahead and check to see what it is.
Yeah.
So being able to create that collaboration and be able to work together, that has made things a lot easier for all parties and all stakeholders involved.
Right. Especially because as we talked earlier on in this session, everything that your staff is responsible for, if we can improve their kind of workflow and their experience, it kind of is beneficial for everybody. Um, so that's really helpful. I really love, that context you shared, especially because your team's been using KidneyVault for the longest in the country. Um, as you kind of look into the future, we talked about the past and all the exciting developments, especially in the recent years. What are the other kind of things you're really looking forward to? Whether it's in technology or outside of technology for transplant.
I'm looking for more advancement in technology because there could never be enough. But I'm also looking to continue with educating our communities and providing them the good stories and providing them the awareness in regards to organ donation and also educating on multicultural communities. I think a lot of people of multicultural backgrounds, they're the one that's waiting for the transplant. They're the one that's waiting on a life-saving gift. But on the flip side, they're also the ones that are not likely to donate as much as other
Mhm.
ethnicities. So being able to provide them with that education and their awareness, LifeGift has a multicultural advisory committee
Hmm.
that we had to ensure that we're able to do that. We do have AMAT, the Association Multicultural Affairs in Transplantation. That's the only organization that we have within the organ donation and transplantation that promotes education and awareness in regards to multicultural communities and education and being options they have available that we have available that, to be able to give that message out there. So I think we need to go ahead and maximize on those opportunities, not only the technologies, but the awareness and the education. I don't think it will never be enough in regards to that.
Yeah, I think that's really key, right? As more of the public is aware of the life-saving impact that donation has, I think more people would understand how valuable that kind of decision, that personal decision that they make, is, and how important it is to everybody else. Um, to close out, we love to ask our guests if there's any specific upcoming events, or webinars, or physical conferences, or just initiatives. It may not need to be events that you're really excited about or passionate about, that you would love to kind of share and highlight for the listeners.
I am pleased to say that I'm the incoming president for AMAT, Association for Multicultural Affairs and Transplantation. So for people to look out for that, we do have a lot of webinars. There's committees that you could join. I am excited with the fact that we're going to have another record-breaking year. It looks like for organ transplantation and donation. So that's great for the recipients. But I just want us to be able to educate and advocate more for the people who are waiting, to ensure that the message is going out there. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. I did lose an uncle this past December waiting for a heart transplant. So I know what it's like to be on that end. And I don't want anybody to be in that situation. Of course, it's not something it's inevitable, but I want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to ensure that we're saving as many lives as possible.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Woodley, again for your time. I know you have a busy schedule, so I think it's really important to share your perspective to the community. So I really appreciate the work you and your team do. It's really inspiring for everybody on our teams, and we look forward to continuing to work together in the future.
Look forward to that too. And one last thing, if you have any questions about donation, please reach out to your local OPO. They'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. So, but thank you for having me. This was great.
Definitely. Thank you so much.